Welcome everyone to Heal, where we are breaking barriers, busting myths, and bringing you tomorrow's healing technology today. And you might be able to tell that we are here in an angelic field of massive amounts of love and energy. And by the way, the energy is just pouring in to our next guest, Stephanie Lodge, and myself. And I am so excited to have you here, Stephanie. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being a part of Heal.
Oh, I'm so grateful for having you bring me into the field that is Heal. It's awesome.
Great. All right, I'm going to start by reading Stephanie's brilliant bio because she is a globally recognized healer as an angelic light stream of source consciousness. She specializes in initializing one's angelic soul keys for quantum epigenetic transformation. We'll get her to explain that. As a visionary teacher and founder of Angelic Academy, she teaches a modern path of heart and soul coherence through her signature Halo method and Diamond Light mastery teachings. Stephanie helps individuals reclaim their soul's original blueprint to activate greater healing potential. Wow. She also elevates your cellular bandwidth through angelic coherence to reveal your true radiance and spiritual harmony. And by the way, that is going to happen during this interview. She is known widely as the Hug Angel. That's how I met her here, Meet the Hug Angel. And she's the creator of the first spiritually harmonized comfort plush toy, Hug Angels, now available on pre-order in the US. And I must say, I have already cuddled and loved up Hug Angels, and they are truly an incredible toy. But I think they're much more than a toy, and that's probably what the feedback you've been getting too, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I had a beautiful young girl. Her name's Seven. She's known as Seven of the Stars, and she took a hug, took a cuddle of it, and she said, "Stephanie, this isn't just a toy. This is a being, and it's here to save the world." And she was so sweet about it. And it is here to do a lot. It's here to really remind us who we are, and the angelic energy that it brings is really powerful. So I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have no doubt at all that you divinely downloaded the look and the feel and the wonder of this angelic doll, or I really want to say being, because
Mhm.
they are like little beings, aren't they? So something that everybody will want to know is, how did you first realize your gifts as an angelic light stream, as you call it? And actually, what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because so many people are used to the concept of channeling, right? Somebody who channels something. And I first got introduced to the concept of angels. I had gone to film school and was working in tech and entertainment and all sorts of things. And I went in for a session one day with this woman, and she said, "I know you didn't come in here for this, but you're very connected to angels, and Archangel Michael's here, and he's telling me you're one of his girls." And people know the story. I kind of joked, "Did he have a harem? Like, I don't understand. But the point is that she said I was very connected to that particular frequency of vibrational consciousness that we would call angels. And it took about 3 years, Sandra, honestly, for me to really accept that. It took me a while to really embody this idea and this consciousness of angels in my life. And they wanted me to really embody it. It wasn't enough just to kind of think about it. They wanted it to really sink in and for me to accept that I have had a very strong connection to them. And there's a longer story there of how I got connected to them from my childhood. I had an accident, and it kind of created this link, I guess you would call it. But the point I'm going to make is, to be an angelic light stream means you're open kind of on all levels to receive what I would call the ultimate creator of our soul, which some would call God, the universe, creator, source. I like to call it source for simplicity. And angelic light streaming really is that you're either buffering, right? That little bouncy or that little rainbow wheel is going around, or you're streaming, meaning we're always able to connect in. And artists of all kinds, musicians, writers, people like this, they know this because they go into what many would call like a flow state, right? The challenge, I think, sometimes though, is people don't trust, what are they streaming at? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it good intel? Is it bad intel? And they get a little confused, or they don't trust fully. And so My job is to give them an element of teaching to have support to work on that level of trust, so they really know what they're connecting to and have a kind of a clear signal, if that makes sense. So to be an angelic light stream basically just means you're angel on demand. You can pretty much bring it in at any time. The minute you ask me a question, I'm in stream and I will deliver the answer. So that's what it means.
Well, believe me, Angel on Demand is exactly what you are, because just for everybody to understand this, Stephanie comes to our home every Thursday night and we have a healing circle. And the one thing that is just so consistent with this beautiful hug angel is that her integrity and her level of streaming is never ending. It is always on tap, like you said, and you have the faith that what you're bringing through is the highest order possible. And, I think you said it right. People are a bit, hesitant as to what they're bringing through. And of course, when you're on tap like you are, there's no hesitancy whatsoever. So when you're channeling or streaming these high frequencies, what is the intention? And how do they heal?
So I think everything is made from intention in a sense, right? When we have the knowledge, when we know, when we're in our heart center, which is really where we know things. When people say, I don't know, where do you want to eat? I don't know. They're in their mind, they're thinking and they're processing up in here. But when you know what you want to eat, it's like a knowing. That's your heart. That's what the body is telling the heart. Hey, this is what you know to do. Now, the biggest question I've always gotten, and from my students is, again, how do you discern and how do you know what you're getting? And I'm going to say your intention is everything. If your intention is to only allow for those highest frequencies and purest consciousness, as I like to say, then that is, and you're in your conviction of knowing what you deserve, and you're in your self-confidence, right? That is what you only allow for. Again, this is all muscles you have to learn to build, of course. Then that's all that's allowed to come through. When you truly know that your intention is everything, then you can intend to heal anything in your body, and that light will say, yes, of course, and give it to you, right? But it's oftentimes the blocks are, I don't deserve, I don't know if I'm enough, is it really working? It's all those insecurities, those little niggly thoughts that get in the way, that really are what the training's about, and what I teach through my academy is to train the mind to kind of get out of the way, give it something to do, let it go on the shelf for a minute, so you can really drop into the feeling space of the heart that knows everything, knows exactly what you need to heal, knows exactly what your body needs to supplement itself, and so forth. So that's really how I look at that.
Yeah, to me, it's very, very much like your ego mind is going to do a number on you, and it will not allow you to connect fully with your true self, that angelic light stream part of you. And I understand that totally. And that's why you as a teacher has been so successful. One of the things that I love the most, and that I always ask you to do this, and that is to bring forth this angelic light stream. It's almost like, I don't know whether you want to call them keys or codes or whatever, but there's a language that you speak, and I want to know what language it is when you are harmonizing.
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of explain this a little bit and how this came to me, because it's a process, right? There's different levels of engagement when we work with angelic light or angelic intelligence. And that celestial cosmos is very big, right? And so for me, I didn't start with streaming them on demand in this other language as we're talking about. I started in English, right? And then eventually I gradually one day just woke up and I was streaming them on their level of language before it got translated down into English. And then I eventually got to the numbers, and the numbers are what I call halonetics when I'm working with the holographic or holofractal universal consciousness, which is kind of like source code. Those frequencies and those numbers have a different harmonic. They're super pure. There's no adulteration of consciousness from the mind at all. It's very neutral. So it's like a scale, right? It's like the scale, and you go up the scale. And the reason you move up the scale is because your body and your instrument's capable of holding that level of refinement or intelligence without interference. So a lot of my students will say, well, I want to do that. And I said, it's not a learning, it's an earning, meaning you have to put in the time and the energy and the intention to move up that scale, right? And be trusted with those energies because they're very powerful. Now, when I started getting the light language, as people will oftentimes refer to it, it wasn't from like an alien or from an angel, specifically a being. It wasn't about that. It was literally the light itself that wanted to stream through me without compartmentalizing, going into the mental, making it a sentence, a paragraph. You know what I'm saying? Any of that kind of organization, it's not about that. It's literally bringing the light in an unadulterated state where it's outside of the constructs of our, let's call it, captured or written language, like English, for instance, which is a baser language. It just is. I'd say there's a lot of things I can get into about language and how we do it, but a lot of times the languages that work from right to left are actually more on fire. This is why in Hebrew letters, they call them fire letters, because they go into your neural pathways differently. They go into the brain differently. They activate the brain and the neural pathways differently than when you read in the inversion state, meaning from left to right, which is a much more controlled system of consciousness. So this is another rabbit hole we can go down, but my point is, when I'm streaming, everything's coming in right to left, and it's going through so rapidly that I'm not thinking about what is it going to be. It's just coming through my heart directly, and it's coming through from source directly, and I just deliver it. And so it has a much more healing vibrational tone.
Absolutely. And what I know to be true, especially for me and for everybody who has the honor and the privilege of listening to you bring through this light stream language, is that because it's not in English, the mind is not trying to interpret it. The mind is not trying to grab hold of a sentence or understand something. Because it is this bigger form of language, this more expanded form of language, it's a listening and allowing it to go through the heart first. For me, it's like it bypasses my mind and goes straight into the heart, and the heart allows it to affect the body. So it's right. For me, it's like living light codes that are streaming through my body as you're doing this. So what I wanted to ask you is, would you bring forth some of this language for us now, and imagine that it is for everybody who is here and who is watching Heal and who is a part of this program, that you're bringing through this incredible language for us at this time.
Absolutely. And what I'd love to speak to really briefly is, you mentioned earlier the quantum epigenetics, and this is part of that because, again, epigenetics is kind of going beyond our genes, right? We're working on them from the beyond, in a sense, in this case. And so my invitation to everyone, before I go into this stream, is to really set an intention of, either for yourself, a loved one, or both, what it is that you would like to reorganize, right? Everything that you are, I talk about the halo, which we'll get to in a little bit, but your halo is an organization. It's a holographic or holofractal organization. It's always self-organizing and reorganizing around you like a sphere, right? So imagine, if you will, that you're setting an intention for that organization to make some adjustments, to make some corrections on something that you would like to shift out. And maybe pick one or two things, don't get too complicated. But the idea is that you're the sovereign being that's deciding in this moment, I am ready to shift this. I'm ready to move from this version of myself, just sidestep over to this version of myself. Because again, we have multiple versions of ourselves in a sense. We're holographic. So it's like, if you're not happy with the version you're running right now, let's just shift over here a degree, right? That's the idea maybe. And that version, what does it have going on that you would prefer? So that would be the invitation I would put in before I bring in this harmonic, because when we bring in this harmonic of these high vibrational conscious levels, we're going into what I call celestial coherence. Oftentimes people think of mind-heart coherence. Well, there's heart-soul or spiritual coherence, and that's what I mean by celestial coherence. You are now going into coherence with an intelligence that has all of your good in mind, that knows everything that you absolutely need, and you're just saying, I'm ready for it. I give permission for that, because for that divine intervention to occur, we must always give permission. we must always ask, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm ready, and I'm asking on behalf of everybody here that we're open and ready to make a shift by simply being very still and open and listening from our heart, not our head.
Beautiful. Okay, so just give me a moment to align and we'll get started here. And I just invite everyone to take a nice deep cleansing breath and close your eyes so you can drop into your heart and bring your focus to your heart. And imagine your heart like this beautiful white, glistening opalescent pearl. And it is open to receive all that is good, whole, and holy in every way. It is only allowing for the highest frequencies and purest consciousness of the living light that I'll be bringing in here, the ultimate love that is the intelligence of source, and the immaculate grace to receive it with ease and flow and love. And just know that this might bring up a remembrance at a deeper soul level of a time or a place. It might bring in memories. It might open up your DNA to some degree of things that you will just know to be true for you. Okay, here we go. Balajare ho varindu Kurundarara Murundarara Alaninu Oalandiri uvarandarindarindaru Marandare andiri arandari Karandara Shwara Karenisu Haranazi Mereni Karazara Turushari Harami Maranukana Ratinola Alahuare Alohali Kenezutana Mikanishari Hareti Sukunusura Tinashari Mandi Keresiwata Kuwata Sari Kenesashine Mireti Kuandare Hari Kenesi Wanda hara 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 hangara hara halu hara 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 hanare marandarande hey.
Thank you so much. I actually can't get enough of that shift in consciousness as you bring through those living light stream, that code. It's so beautiful. You talk about angelic soul keys that you initiate. So where do the soul keys come from?
So this is interesting. Many years ago when I started opening up to the light and this whole thing started coming through again, one day I asked, what is it that you want me, what am I here to do? And they said, you are an angelic soul, you are angelic light stream. And I'm angelic soul too, I guess. And I said, what does that mean? And they said, Google it. And when I say they, I mean the councils that were already communicating with me. So I said, okay, so I go to Google and I search for Angelic Light Stream. And what came up at the time was something called the Essene Gospel of Peace. And it led me to the teachings of Yeshua that were lost for the ages, and found eventually in the Vatican and translated. And these particular teachings included angelology, ancient angelology, that were some of the original teachings of Yeshua, as people know him as Jesus, right? And so I'm reading through this and I'm realizing there's the angel of air and the angel of water and earth and so forth. And interestingly, in my expansion, I eventually came across the 72 angels. And people will know these as the 72 names of God. They're kind of captured, if you will, within the Kabbalah system, but they actually predate that system. And they were originally in the Torah and put in there in kind of hiding in plain sight within the book of Exodus. And what was taught to me by Yeshua himself, because I do work with him and channel him often, was that these were essentially the building blocks of our genome. And they ultimately can lock us in or unlock us out of form, from the highest vibration to the density of form. So it's kind of coming from the antimatter into matter, or the metaphysical into the physical, it would be the better way to say that. So in a sense, when we think of ourselves nowadays kind of programmed into these ideas of being on the hamster wheel and all the things that, society programs for us, we can unlock ourselves from that. And a lot of that gives us this density, this heaviness, this belief that we have to work so hard and all the things, that make everything feel heavy. And the idea of the keys is to unlock our genome, unlock the original genetic patterning that we were made with, and open us up to what I call, again, the celestial presence that we are, this light vibrational, the light beingness of us. And when we work at those levels, the light first or the frequency first, we can then inform, again, the physical format, right? So these keys serve as bridges between the light or the inverted state of the matter. And when we harmonize with them, we raise our vibration and our frequency, we become lighter, we become more lightness, and we have access to greater levels of light through them. So essentially, you're building like a bridge at the genome level between your physical and your non-physical sense. Now, the soul keys are 3 particular keys that you are born with. When you come in, these keys are mapped to a calendar system. And when you are born, you have a physical, emotional, and intellectual key. And so these 3 keys, I kind of call them your Holy Trinity. They're the ones that manage what you would call your vortex, your center channel. And you can kind of think of this, you'll love this, Sandra. It's like your neutral zone. It's like your 0 point, right? You are at the center of your 0 point in what I call your torsion or torus field, your halo. And this is what governs that. This is what keeps that in harmony and very high vibration. And so when you're holding those 3 keys and you practice with them, and I teach this through my academy, you become like this walking vortex of energy that just bounces things out that don't want to be in there and pull things in magnetically that do. And your halo is kind of that interface of deciding, oh, this is in, this is out, right? It's your bouncer, essentially. So yeah, your angelic soul keys are fundamentally what I believe are what you decided to come in with in this life to manage through your experience as a human being. And each key has a different meaning, has values, and then again has these inversions or distortions that kind of show you where you're stuck. What are the areas of your life that you came in to kind of challenge yourself with? If you think of us as these masterful, powerful celestial beings, and then we come into human form, we sometimes give ourselves some challenges, or we'd be bored. I know that sounds funny sometimes, but I know you and I probably gave ourselves a little too much on our plate, but so that's what they do.
Without doubt, I have got no idea why the trauma and the challenges needed to be this great.
Yeah.
Although I have an inkling that for us to be of service to humanity, there needs to be an understanding of what the suffering is.
Yeah.
And so there's been no end of suffering in my life and in yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that it's over yet, but I'm certainly ready to make the shift and to come to that place where my soul keys are working with me. And
Mm-hmm.
when you said neutrality, of course, that that's exactly what I've been given to teach is like getting neutral means that you can be the observer of what, and I love what you say, of what's bouncing around us, right?
Mhm.
And allow it to bounce in and out without getting hooked into it or triggered by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. One of the things I like to share is that I kind of think as a, and this is an important one probably with some of your other teachers here in heals, when we have like parasites in our gut, and our gut is a really big area of our immune system. I tell people that's one area you want to clean the parasites up, because those parasites are a link into the parasitical energies around us. So those are, I call like the hookers, like they hook you, different kind of hooker. They hook you, right? They hook into the system. And the biggest place they can do that is through the gut. So getting our gut really clean and clear is another aspect that I talk about in my work, because yes, there's the celestial. Yes, there's this consciousness around us, but there's also the physical instrument that we want to address. And I know so many of your teachers here are doing that, which is great. So I won't get into it, but just know that I do look at that as well. And I look at DNA renewal and repairing DNA, because the DNA has been damaged by so many different things that are toxic in our lives in the last couple decades, especially. So it's really important to realize that as much as I'm saying, yes, let's expand into our light nature, also pay attention to how well your physical is operating to connect to that. It's an important piece to it. And I do cover that too in my work.
Yeah, I think you've brought something in though that, by the way, none of our other teachers have talked about specifically. Everybody is talking about the gut-brain connection, and Dr. Patrick Porter did that beautifully, and so did some of our practitioner panel. And of course, we, when Daniel was diagnosed with Parkinson's, they said, well, it probably originates in the gut, and we're like, oh, and I know that parasites and worms within our system can actually control us. And this is not a
Mhm.
subject that people even want to know about, because a lot of people will be going, oh, don't talk about this right now. But the fact is that I've even seen, a woman who was a complete alcoholic. And when she had all of the worms and parasites detoxed out of her system,
Mhm.
she just was able to give up alcohol in a
Yeah,
second. Like there wasn't even a problem, because it was the parasites and the worms that wanted the alcohol. It
correct.
actually wasn't her. And
Yeah.
so what you're talking about is that there is an intelligence within us
Mhm.
that is sabotaging us unless we take control of that and we make the shift. So I love the fact that you teach detox as well.
Yeah, I mean, to speak to that a little further, what's really important to recognize is that a lot of times we're creating those parasites ourselves. Like people think that you can just consume them, on a strawberry or something, right? But we can actually manifest them. And so we have to realize that if we're creating, we can uncreate. That's the beauty of being a creator, right?
Mhm.
Now, yes, absolutely. I agree with you. There are intelligences. Our microbiome is a big one that we need to look at, because most people are short bandwidth on that. I work with a supplement, a probiotic that's 32,000 species of bacteria that make up the whole microbiome. Most of the time, your supplements are going to have like 20. That's a big difference, because that
Yeah.
means you have a legion of light now working for you that are friendlies to go after the ones that are unfriendly, let's call it, right? And this is a huge difference. Nowadays we're getting more educated, and I think it's always expanding, and we're learning more all the time, so that we can go up into this field that's getting a little interesting right now and really take it on differently, and have that backup and have that support. Because when you have friendly bacteria in the gut, the unfriendlies are going to get taken care of, and you're not going to have the cravings for sugar and the cravings for alcohol and those things as much. And the parasites too are going to get taken care of, because the heavy metals will get digested, right? So it's a big, big, big thing, the gut, for sure, when working
This
with
is a
this.
conversation that could go for a whole interview all on its
I
own,
know, I know.
and it's such an important one. But
Mm.
let's go. Um, can you explain why you feel that light frequency is the future of medicine as we know it?
For sure. As again, I believe everything starts as frequency first. I believe that fundamentally we are always in an ascension process. We're either reaching up more and more every day into that frequency, or we're descending out of it. But I believe we're all being kind of pushed now, whether we like it or not. Our planet has a lot of different light coming in, more energy coming in than ever before. So it's on an ascension cycle. It's raising up vibrationally. So we're either going to go with that light ship and raise our vibration up with it, or we're going to fall off the ship. And we'd rather not do that. So we're going to move our frequency to match it. And frequency is where so many companies I've seen now in the last, couple decades come out with like different types of Rife machines and different types of frequency devices. And that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with getting that kind of boost and support and analysis oftentimes. And I have certain companies I work with for that. But fundamentally, when we realize even those devices and those frequencies are still artificial versions of the source field, right? The source frequencies. Those frequencies are always wanting to support us. It's just our allowance for it. Again, it goes back to allowance. And then when you have devices like LifeWave, like you're wearing, right? That is an interface that you can actually program that. You can actually program that device called a patch to bring more of that celestial frequency in for your body, as well as what it's designed to do. Again, everything is consciousness, everything.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
that's why I say frequencies are going to be the wave of the future, because once we really get that, then we can heal ourselves.
Well, and it's almost like Tesla and Einstein and David Schmidt all saying that, the light frequency energy is, we are light frequency energetic beings. So it just makes sense that we would be using that in order to heal the body that we are in. So just last question, what is living light? And this is such a big question for me, because on Saturday, I'm doing a webinar called about the living light codes. And so I love that you are coming in and talking about this before that webinar, because it's setting, what you are doing is setting people up to understand what's going to happen. And I would really like to say to people right now, what is happening now, as you are listening to Stephanie and to me explain about these angelic light codes, the halo method, the light keys, is that your DNA is already making a shift. You can't listen to a conversation like this without your frequency expanding, without your frequency going up. So living light, Stephanie, when you go into that, please listen, because your unconscious mind, everything about you will be listening to this, and there will be a remembrance of what this is. So can you explain what living light is?
Yeah. So living light, interestingly, Hildegard de Bingen mentioned living light back in the day, and she was this beautiful Christian mystic. And I can't get into all her history. I don't know all her history, but one day she came through and I heard living light, and it made me connect with her. And so we started communing, but so I can't take credit for creating that concept, but I've been speaking on living light probably for the last decade or so. And living light, I also call diamond light. And it's this consciousness, this light that is coming straight hot off the press all the time from source consciousness. Some people will call that the Elohim levels of light. And this type of light has very pure, very integrous, and very authentic consciousness frequency that you can just feel like this is the real deal. Now, there's other types of light. There's other types of consciousness. There's light that's in the records. The Akashic records are records of things that have already been thought and put into form that people can pull from. Psychics will often pull from your records and see like what are some of the things that are in your field, right? That are already captured and recorded and existing, in the patterns of your DNA or in your lineage or ancestry, so forth. And there's a lot of consciousness there to explore. You can go on quantum healing journeys and go find your past lives and all the light that's captured there. Living light is the light that's coming in right now as I'm talking. Living light is the consciousness that's most relevant to our evolution now, versus consciousness that might have been put down in scripture 2000 years ago. And people want to give authority away to something of that nature as if that's the authority because it's old. Somehow it has greater authority because it's old. And in my opinion, that's not true. What's true for us now, because we're always evolving, we're always shifting, right, is what is coming in now is consciousness to support us, because maybe a lot of things have changed. And that's what I like to share, right?
Yeah.
We're changing all the time.
Everything is changing
Yeah.
all the time.
So
One decade to the next, everything's
yeah,
changing.
yeah. So
Yeah.
when we are captured into a conscious field, let's say a pattern, a belief, call it a religion, and we put our consciousness to that, and then we're surprised when that map of consciousness suddenly plays out, call it, Armageddon, right? And that, like, we're just going to use that universal one because most people know it. No judgment. But of course it's going to, because so many people believe in it and they put their conscious investment in it. And so my job is to say, well, maybe we don't believe in it. And maybe we create a new pattern that everything is going to be amazing and wonderful. And we're creating a world that's going to thrive for everybody. And our children are going to, thrive and be safe and secure. So again, we get to decide what of the old still works for us and what do we carry forward? Because if we keep carrying all of our Samsonite collection of baggage of consciousness of belief from past things into the present, what are we creating into the future from? You know what I'm saying? We're creating that same pattern and we keep repeating it. So if we can just let it go, say, okay, what's coming in right now? What's the most appropriate for now for us? And what do we want to build from this moment forward that makes our playground beautiful and wonderful for everyone to thrive on, right?
Oh,
That's the idea.
that's the choice, isn't it? All right, I
Mhm.
want to speak to you forever, but I'm going to make this the last question. How can someone manage the toxicity and lower energies with living light? This is probably something that everybody wants to know.
Yeah. So what I didn't share, I guess, detailed on yet is the Halo method that I teach. And the Halo method, Halo, it comes in two different angles. One is holographic or holofractal assembled light organization. Again, Halo, right, for short. What it does is it harmonically aligns and light optimizes you. So again, that's that celestial coherence I talk about. That means you're aware that there's something more than your physical form. Now, some people might say, oh, well, that's my astral body or my etheric body. It's all your bodies. It's all dimensions of you. And it is networked with all versions of you that exist in the quantum multidimensional universe. That's what makes Halo so different. So when you're working on yourself in this form called Sandra or Stephanie, and you have your halo on, meaning you're aware of it, and you call it in and you activate it, now you're working on all the versions of you. And that means other lifetimes where you exist. That means the masters that you are, the angels that you are, and so forth. So it's a very new concept that I created from my team, created with me to teach people how to be more efficient in how they manage all that they are, not just their light body, but their physical too. So when I work with people and they have toxins in their environment, toxic people, toxic things that they consume, whatever, we set intentions through this halo frequency. And we might say like halo activate, activate halo. And then we'll say halo cleanse, clear, and purify. And we'll allow the light and the frequencies and the vibrations and the intelligence to come in and move. If we need to move the body to let things go, and all sorts of things happen in halo. It's really awesome. But that's the main instrument of consciousness or practice I teach, to get people to recognize that they are more than their corporeal form. They're moving through this field at a quantum level. And when we start to recognize ourselves as that, we will shift the whole environment, right? More people come into Halo, we create a network. We have a network that's growing right now. In fact, Sunday after your presentation, I'm doing Halo Healing as a free event that people are welcome to come in. And that's going to be basically where people get initiated into understanding Halo and the celestial coherence much more.
Sounds like the perfect weekend for everybody.
Yeah,
Join
right.
the Living Light Codes on Sunday, and you for the Halo on Saturday, and you for the Halo on Sunday. This has just been such an eye opener, and talk about busting myths. And there were so many areas there I would have liked to have gone into, but I know we would have. A lot of people would have gone, oh, I don't want to go there. But so that's okay. The fact is that you have sown seeds that allow people to understand that they are so much more than what they think they are, so much more powerful than what they know themselves to be, and that there's a choice, and that you actually are an activator of this living light stream, and you help people, I think, make the choice with greater grace and ease. Would that be correct to say?
I would like to think so. I mean, I think for my purpose is to really liberate humanity from suffering, as most of us, as healers are here to do, and expand them into thinking a little differently about what they believe reality is, so that they can create new reality. And I believe that we're doing that one being at a time, right? We're doing that as we touch people. And I love what heal's about, because everybody has their different angel angle, as I like to call it. And I want to say this, when we move out of absolutism, like it's absolutely this way or absolutely that way, or right, left, or black and white thinking, and we come into more of the gray area, in the sense that we get to blend and compromise and find harmony with each other instead of fighting. That's on all levels, right? That's when we're going to truly be free. Because the minute we get into those debates of it has to be this way, because maybe some of the things I'm saying go against some what other people might say, right? There doesn't need to be I'm right and they're wrong, or they're right and I'm wrong. It's take what works for you, try something out, be open, and maybe it works for you and not somebody else. I tell people that too. Some supplements will work for some people, or some energy work will work for some people, and others it won't. Everyone's unique. So when we're more allowing, I think that's when we really can heal this world.
Yeah, I just love the fact that you've opened this up. By the way, what you've just heard, everybody, is an angel speaking, and it is saying, stop judgments, move into your own angelic beingness, and understand that everybody has the right to their own thought processes, to whatever it is that they're going through.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, I cannot thank you enough for being a member of HEAL and for really imparting this incredible angelic light stream wisdom today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And all of the information on how to get in touch with Stephanie will be in the will be available for you. And yeah, have a think about this. Saturday and Sunday, these are days that you could make massive, wondrous living light code shifts. Love you, Stephanie. God bless.
Love you so much. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for having me.